Because Donald Trump, the Dow right now is over, the Dow is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing. You're a great stock trader, as I hear, Raskin. The Dow is over 50,000.
This may look like a partisan shouting match over economic numbers, but it's actually a confrontation over what accountability in Congress is supposed to mean. What's really being tested here is whether institutional oversight can stay focused when political success metrics are introduced as counterarguments. This raises broader questions about how power defends itself under scrutiny, and whether performance can substitute for process. In this video, we'll break down how a tense judiciary hearing shifted from transparency to narrative control, and what that tells us about the state of congressional oversight today.
Bondi, you go right ahead. I'm over here. The time is yours.
Thank you. First, he brought up the president saying they indicted me twice. They sure did. They tried to impeach him twice. And you, Mr. Nadler, were one of the leads on the impeachment. I was on the other side. I lived that with you. During impeachment, you said the president conspired, sought foreign interference in the 2016 election. Robert Mueller found no evidence, none, of foreign interference in 2016. Have you apologized to President Trump? Have you apologized to President Trump, all of you who participated in those impeachment hearings against Donald Trump? You all should be apologizing. You sit here and you attack the president, and I am not going to have it. I'm not going to put up with it. You know, all they want to do, the American people need to know this. They are talking about Epstein today. This has been around since the Obama administration. This administration released over 3 million pages of documents, over 3 million, and Donald Trump signed that law to release all of those documents. He is the most transparent president in the nation's history. And none of them asked Merrick Garland over the last 4 years one word about Jeffrey Epstein. How ironic is that? You know why? Because Donald Trump, the Dow right now is over, the Dow is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing. You're a great stock trader, as I hear, Raskin. The Dow is over 50,000 right now. The S&P at almost 7,000. And the NASDAQ smashing records. Americans' 401ks and retirement savings are booming. That's what we should be talking about. We should be talking about making Americans safe. We should be talking about, what does a Dow have to do with anything? That's what they just asked. Are you kidding?
Mr. Jordan, Mr. Jordan.
Committee will be in order.
Mr. Jordan, am I going to get an extra 45 seconds added to my time?
The committee will be in order. The time belongs to the gentleman from Texas. Ms. Bondi, the Attorney General can respond.
Thank you. The Dow has shattered 50,000 for the first time. This is crazy. They said it couldn't be done in 4 years, yet President Trump has done it in 1 year. National median rents have fallen to a 4-year low, thanks to Donald Trump. That's why they want to focus on Epstein and our most transparent president in the nation's history. The murder rate, as I said, has plummeted to a 125-year low, thanks to Donald Trump. For an unprecedented 9 straight months, there were 0 illegal border crossings at the southern border. That's what we should be focused on. All the great work that this president has done and will continue to do to keep America safe and to make Americans safe.
Thank you, Attorney General Bondi. I agree with you totally. I think you've done a fine job. I think that Democrats, in fact, should be apologizing to the Epstein victims for doing nothing during the 4 years that they were running the government. We did not hear about this, and it took you and President Trump to finally provide transparency and give answers to the American people, and I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you also for standing up for truth today and for fighting back against the theatrics and the time waste that you will endure over the next hour or two. I want to apologize on behalf of my colleagues on the left. They're not all that bad, but they've got to put on a show. And I'm sorry that you have to go through that. And I would like to yield the last, I'd say 40 is 80 seconds. The clock says 40, but I've got 80 seconds since I was so rudely interrupted, and I'll give all 80 seconds to Chairman Jordan.
And I would just yield to the Attorney General if she has anything to add.
I'm fine to continue. Thank you,
Okay.
Chairman.
All right, the chair now recognizes, the gentleman yields back. The chair recognizes the gentlelady from California.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would note that Mr. Nadler's question has not yet been answered, but I want to start by asking that out of respect for the American public.
Moments ago, in a tense exchange before the House Judiciary Committee, Attorney General Pam Bondi stood firm as laughter broke out across the chamber. The Dow Jones Industrial Average had just crossed 50,000 for the first time, she declared. A historic benchmark. A milestone that, in her words, proved what this administration had accomplished in just 1 year. Yet, as she spoke, some members on the other side reacted with open amusement. And in that moment, amid the interruptions, the crosstalk, the raised voices, something deeper was revealed. This was not simply a debate about numbers on a screen. It was not merely a partisan clash over impeachment history or document releases. It was a snapshot of a divided nation arguing over what counts as progress and who gets to define it. Bondi began by revisiting the impeachment battles of years past. She reminded the room that accusations of conspiracy and foreign interference had once dominated headlines. She asked whether apologies were owed. She challenged the moral authority of those who had led those proceedings. It was not just a defense of President Trump. It was a confrontation over narrative, over who writes the official story of American political life. Then came the pivot. 3 million pages of documents released. Claims of unprecedented transparency. The Dow soaring past 50,000, the S&P near 7,000, the NASDAQ breaking records, retirement accounts rising, median rents falling. Border crossings reduced to historic lows. A series of statistics delivered not as footnotes, but as ammunition. When laughter followed the mention of the Dow, Bondi pressed harder. "What does the Dow have to do with anything?" someone asked from across the aisle. Her answer was implicit. Everything. Because for this administration, economic indicators are not abstract figures. They are proof of leadership, proof of direction. Proof that, despite controversy and constant scrutiny, results are tangible. But the laughter mattered. It exposed a philosophical divide. For some lawmakers, markets rising do not answer questions about oversight. They do not substitute for transparency in every matter. They do not resolve long-standing controversies. For others, economic strength is the ultimate referendum, a signal that governance is working. In a judiciary hearing ostensibly focused on legal and investigative issues, the debate shifted to Wall Street. That shift tells us something about modern American politics. Economic performance has become a shield, a rebuttal, a rallying cry. It is invoked not just as policy success, but as moral vindication. Bondi framed President Trump as the most transparent president in the nation's history, pointing to the release of millions of documents. She contrasted that with what she described as years of silence from previous leadership. She cast the administration as the force that finally brought answers into the light. Her critics, however, were not prepared to concede the narrative. This is the reality of Washington today. Two sides speaking past one another, each convinced that the other refuses to acknowledge what is obvious. On one side, the claim is that economic revival, declining rents, record markets, and tightened border enforcement demonstrate decisive governance. On the other, the insistence is that accountability cannot be drowned out by applause for market highs. The laughter in the chamber was more than a reaction. It was a signal, a statement that metrics alone do not settle moral debates. And yet, the metrics themselves are undeniable in their political power. When the Dow crosses 50,000, it becomes a headline. It becomes a symbol. For supporters, it represents confidence restored. For critics, it raises questions about distribution, sustainability, and whether market gains reflect the experience of every American. Bondi's remarks were delivered with urgency. She did not retreat when interrupted. She doubled down. She reminded the room that retirement accounts are booming. She emphasized falling rents and lower crime statistics. She called the focus on past controversies ironic. In doing so, she transformed a defensive posture into an offensive one. This is the modern hearing room. Not a quiet legal forum, but a stage where economic data competes with investigative scrutiny, where applause and derision echo just as loudly as sworn testimony. What does it reveal about government? It reveals that power today is inseparable from perception. That leadership is judged not only by policy outcomes, but by the ability to control the narrative surrounding them. That hearings are no longer merely about facts entered into the record, they are about which facts dominate the public imagination. It reveals that transparency itself has become contested territory. One side points to millions of released pages as evidence of openness. The other demands answers to specific unresolved questions. Each claims the mantle of accountability, and it reveals something about us, the American public watching from home. We are asked to decide what matters more, the soaring graph on a financial news ticker or the unanswered question in a committee room, the measurable gain or the lingering doubt. The truth is rarely confined to one side of the ledger. Economic performance does matter, so does oversight, so does consistency in applying principles, regardless of party. A functioning republic requires both prosperity and accountability. Growth without scrutiny invites complacency. Scrutiny without recognition of achievement breeds cynicism. In that charged exchange, laughter meeting defiance, we witnessed the tension at the heart of our democracy. The numbers were real. So was the division. And as the gavel called the committee back to order, one thing became clear. America's political battle is no longer simply about policies. It is about legitimacy, about whose definition of success prevails. History will not remember the laughter alone. It will remember whether the promises tied to those numbers were fulfilled, whether transparency claims held under examination, whether the institutions designed to balance power did their job. In the end, the question is not whether the Dow crossed 50,000. The question is whether our system can sustain both prosperity and principle at the same time. That is the test before us. And that is why these moments matter. If you believe accountability and achievement must both be examined in the light of day, stay informed, stay engaged. And subscribe to Liberty Report USA as we continue to follow the hearings, challenge the narratives, and bring you the full story behind the headlines.